speaking, so. So this is the second time I've ever worn this jacket, and I figured since I was doing this, why not? This was, it's actually big on me, which is good. Means all the work I've been putting in is working. So this was my birthday outfit for my 40th birthday. Someone's supposed to say you don't look 40. So yes, and that was a picture from, one of the pictures from my 40th birthday. The reason for the jacket literally is because this is the second time I've worn it. Because when are you ever going to wear something like this again? When I bought it at Macy's, I asked the lady at the counter, how many of these have you sold? And she said, this is actually the first. And I went, yeah, I'm not surprised. So yeah, so that's why I'm wearing it. Also a distraction in the back, but I'm really nervous about this. So here we go. My name is Gaughenbaugh. I am the Assistant Director for Housing and Residence Life. I've been at Marywood a little over a year, but I am a native of Scranton. Actually grew up in this area in Greenwich, just down the street. My parents still live there. And yeah, so that's me from my birthday party. I've been given 20 minutes, which is 30 seconds per year if you've done math. So I'm going to do my best. Let's see what happens. So this is me, 40th birthday party. This is me at about 16 or 17 years old. Notice the mullet, dead from about here to here. Notice the very large shirt. I don't know why I was wearing that, but there it is. So as you can see, I have come a really long way. I'm probably going to walk around a lot, so if I get in your way, just move me aside, it's fine. So I'm supposed to talk about my life. And I had a little bit of trouble sort of organizing things and trying to figure out what was going to come first and kind of what wasn't and what I was going to focus on. So I just kind of decided to sort of start from the beginning and start with my parents. This is my mother, Luann Bonham Rapon is her middle name. The little boy is me. She, as you can see, she was a very beautiful woman. In my household, my parents are divorced. I lived mostly with my mother, but not solely. There was a point when I lived with my father as well. My mother was Catholic. She was very big in making sure that I had some sort of Catholic teaching, although religion was not very big in our house. So we didn't necessarily pray. We went to church kind of sporadically. It was a part of our lives, but it wasn't a huge part of our lives. So that's kind of just to give you a sense of kind of where we grew up, or how I grew up. This is my father. Everyone says I look exactly like him. I always say I'm better looking, clearly. But this is my father. My father was Lutheran growing up. Religion was also not very big in his house either. I don't know if he grew up with religion like that. But I do know that his family, at least his parents, were always very religious and tried to instill that in him. I don't know that it always worked, but you know, do your best. These pictures, that picture over on the left was one that he actually carried around in his wallet. The one on the right is the one in my college, I guess you could call it residence hall, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then my high school graduation is me in red. I went to Bishop Hannon. Anyone know? Probably not. It's been closed for a long time. Oh, you know Bishop Hannon. Yes, I know. Yes, yes, thank you. Bishop Hannon has been closed for not an extremely long time, but long enough. But it was in downtown Scranton. So. I have a sister, Brittany. That is her over on the right. And then the two, that's us at Disney, and that I think is Disney, but I'm not 100% sure. Brittany is currently 35 years old. She has a 6-year-old niece. That's my niece on that lower picture, but she looks exactly like my sister. To the point where my niece will look at old pictures of my sister and go, oh, that's me. You know? The middle picture is me, my sister, and my stepfather. My stepfather is Ed Bonnet. My stepfather, that is my college. No, that is my grad school graduation. Wow, too many graduations. They came to see me graduate from UNC Charlotte, which was nice. My niece is Sophie Lou, right down there at the bottom. She's in kindergarten. She's, I'm a little biased, but she's literally the most adorable girl on the entire planet. So I dare you to challenge that. My sister and I are very close. We have not always been very close, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. We are very close now, and she and I have been through a lot, and so we have really supported each other and really have really been there for each other in a lot of ways. Hasn't always been easy, but there it is. My stepfather is my mother's third husband. My sister and I have different fathers, so my mother married my father, had me, married my sister's father, had her, and then Ed is her third husband. He really became a very big father figure in my life, and really kind of took care of the family at a time when our family really needed to be taken care of. So that's what I grew up with. My education. So I put all of this on here simply because I thought it was really fun to just go through all my education and go through my entire life. So my education, Frickles and Frills Kindergarten, which was in Greenridge. Do you know Frickles and Frills? Anybody? You do? Okay, great. Then Robert Morris Elementary, which was right across the street, also in Greenridge. Holy Rosary, which is also in Greenridge, for third. And then Our Lady of Peace in Clark's Green, up by Clark Summit. Then I went to Abington Heights Middle School, also in Clark Summit, from 4th to 8th. I repeated 4th grade just because I started school real early. And then again, Bishop Hannon High School. That was just really fun for me to go through all of that. But also to give you a sense of the education that I've had, both public and private and Catholic and not. University of Scranton is where I got my philosophy degree, my bachelor's in philosophy. And then I went to the Gregorian University I really only completed about a semester in attempting to get my master's in divinity. This was in Rome, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we continue on. And then I actually received my master's at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, North Carolina. Couldn't figure that out. In community counseling. So those are the degrees in the education that I have, just to give you a sense of that. So my vocation story. So I don't know what you all know about kind of why I was asked to talk, but this was sort of one of the reasons. Because I've been told it's interesting and unique and all of that, and I hope you'll agree. If you don't, just keep that to yourself. So my vocation story, if you don't know, I was in the seminary for 5 years, studying to be a diocesan priest. And so the way that happened was sort of starting in high school. I went to Bishop Hannon, which was a Catholic high school. The sort of director of the theology program was a priest, and he came into class one day and said, the vocation office is doing a dinner for guys who are thinking about entering the seminary. And then he looked around the room and went, I see a lot of vocations in this room. Then proceeded to invite every single boy to that dinner. So nobody really felt special. He asked me if I wanted to go to the dinner. My first reaction was, thanks, Father, but no, I'm good. He said, okay, we'll see. So then, a little while later, there was something that I wanted to talk to him about. So I set up a meeting, went to his office, chickened out, decided I was not going to talk to him about it, and then in that process he had gotten up and went out to do something else real quick. When he came back in, I was ready to leave the office. I was about to pick up my bag, I was about to stand up, and he walked back in. So now I felt, I'm kind of trapped. What am I going to say? So honestly, the first thing that I thought of as I looked in his eyes and said, so what do you want to talk about? And I said, I think I want to be a priest. I don't know where it came from, I don't know why it happened, I don't know why it fell out of my mouth, but there it was. It was out there. So he got me connected with the vocation director at the time. The vocation director then invited me to the seminary. Our seminary for the diocese was in Dalton, Pennsylvania. Do you know where Dalton is? Out past Clark Summit, by Keystone University, Keystone College. If you don't know where that is, that's why Google was invented. So I started visiting the seminary and really enjoyed my time there. I started meeting a lot of the guys. I started getting a sense of sort of what the schedule was like and kind of what all of that was about. Through that experience, I started attending Mass more. I started praying more. I started really kind of taking that part real seriously. Also around this time, to that in any kind of order, and I apologize for that. Also around this time, I had a severe lack of options of what I was going to do with my life. This was my junior year. I had decided up to that point that I was going to be famous. I was going to be a singer, I was going to be an actor, I was going to be a musician, I was going to be anything that put me out in front of people. And then in my junior year, I saw a videotape of me performing Guys and Dolls and realized, oh my God, I have no talent. Right. That's a hard realization to come to, but when you see it right in front of your face, there it is. So by my junior year, I had 0 options. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And so I figured at that point, since I started visiting the seminary, I really enjoyed kind of what was going on. I enjoyed sort of internally what was happening. I decided, you know what, let me try this. I'll do it for at least a year. If it doesn't work out, then I leave. No one's chaining me to the door. No one's putting a gun to my head, all of that kind of stuff. So I decided I'll try it for a year. Other things I really liked about the seminary, and something that really came out was this desire to help people. Through my time at the seminary, I realized that I was actually really good at talking to people, and people felt comfortable talking to me. And so I thought that kind of fit with that as well, and I really enjoyed that part. Really enjoyed that part. There was also a great sense of brotherhood at the seminary, which I really, really enjoyed. Everybody really supported each other. We're human beings, so people didn't always get along. But everybody really enjoyed being with each other and really supported each other at the times when it really mattered. So I did it for a year. My first year was a little rough because I was still learning, and I was learning a lot of things that I had not known before. Things about ritual, things about religion, things about God, things about Jesus, things about saints, things about lots of different things that I had not known before. So it was a little rough in the beginning because there was a learning curve that everybody else seemed to have and I did not. So I appreciated that my brothers were really good at supporting me. I stayed for 5 years because I loved what I was learning. I was really into it. It wasn't always easy to learn about, primarily because sometimes some of the saints write really weird, and I just couldn't figure that out, but I learned. But I loved what I was learning. I was really getting into it. I loved the brotherhood. I loved the friendships. I made a lot of friends while I was in the seminary, and that was something that I really treasured. I gained a sense of identity. I would not be the person I am today had I not entered the seminary, for better or worse. I'll let you make that in. But I would not know who I am, I would not be who I am, had it not been for that experience. So I really appreciate that. I always say that if I had to do it over again, knowing what I know now, I absolutely 100% would do it. My comfort zone was blown out of the water. I was very shy up until this point. I would not talk to other people. I certainly would not stand up in front of a crowd and talk to people. I didn't have a whole lot of friends. I didn't really put myself out there, and the seminary changed all of that. Through my experiences in that parish assignments and being forced to really stand up and talk in front of people, being forced to mingle with people, being forced to put myself out there, my comfort zone, I just really don't have it anymore. So it's completely different now. Where it's much bigger. It's much more expansive. These pictures are times from the seminary. So this was my room. All of those 3 pictures, and then we had a refectory in the seminary, which is where we ate. The other people in those pictures are my family. They came up to see me. So the end of an era. So after 5 years, as much as I loved my time, there were some things that were really, really difficult for me. One of those being learning about something, especially when you're learning about a person, can sometimes turn that person from a person into a concept. And that's kind of what was happening for me. I would go to class, I would learn all of these things about God, but as I continued on, I don't know that I was always seeing that put into practice. I wasn't seeing that person. And so God, by the end of it all, was becoming more of a concept than he was a person. Ritualization started to take priority. So I started to see, especially in my last year, I was in Rome, which is the heart of the Catholic Church. And so what I was seeing there The seminary that I was at, there was a lot of focus on rituals, and a lot of focus on hierarchy, and a lot of focus on rules, and a lot of focus on that kind of stuff. And that just wasn't who I was. I didn't see a lot of focus on God as a person. So one of the reputations that this seminary specifically had was being kind of like a bishop factory. And I'm going to put that out there. There it is. And I don't know how true it is. I've never actually done statistics or anything like that. It's probably more of just the reputation that it has. I think because it was in Rome and all of that, there's a lot of opportunity to meet higher-ups in the church. That was not me. That was not what I was there for. But a lot of the people around me, it seemed like that was, in a lot of ways, what they were there for. I had some conflicts of belief. And as I was kind of losing faith in my vocation, I was starting to lose a little bit of faith in those beliefs. So there were conversations of, you have to believe this and this and this and this and this and this, otherwise you can't call yourself Catholic. I'm not going to say whether or not that's true, but it didn't fit well with me. Not that I wanted to believe what I believe, but I had my own personal relationship with God. And I trusted in that, and I believed in that. And was at the same time being bombarded with a lot of other things that I just couldn't buy into. So through all of that, I started feeling disconnected from God, from religion, from my faith, from my vocation, from the people around me. And I felt I could live the next 3 years in Rome, which would have been awesome, but I decided to do the right thing and say, I need to pull myself away from this. The last piece of this was celibacy. That became very, very difficult for me. It was always very difficult for me for the whole 5 years that I was in, but that last year became even more difficult, probably because I was feeling disconnected from a lot of things. The fact is, I wanted to fall in love. I had never had that experience. I joined right after high school, and it was something that I desired and craved and really, really wanted. So I decided that there were things that were kind of pulling me away from priesthood. And so let me explore some of those things first before I start making that commitment. The aftermath. So these pictures are mostly pictures of me and friends and things like that after I had left the seminary and moved back home. Really funny story. These folks here, the twins, Tracy and Stacy, adorable. They are my roommates along with my friend Kristen here. We've been friends for decades, literally about 25 years. When I came back from the seminary, when I was in the seminary, we had sort of lost touch. I met them sort of in high school when we all worked together at Hill's department store, which you may not know. And reconnected because I was working at Wilkes as a campus minister, and I was coming home from work, and somebody next to me was beeping the horn because I was singing in the car. Beeping the horn, that's what I do. And I was like, I'm not looking over, it's probably just some kid who's going to try to make fun of me or whatever. Beeping, finally I went, and it was Tracy. We had not talked in 5 years. It was Tracy, and we were sitting at a red light, and she said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm back home. She said, that's fantastic. I said, you're the same number. She said, yes. I said, great, I'll call you, and we moved. The light turned green, and we had to leave. I then called, and sort of the rest is history. Now we're roommates. But these are just some pictures of some of the most important people in my life and sort of what was going on after I had left the seminary. For about 3 months after I left, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I had literally no idea. And that, if you've never had that, can be very disconcerting. It can be very, very difficult to deal with. And so I hit a depression for literally about 6 months, for about 3 months. I then found a job at Wilkes as the campus minister. Oh, where are you going? Don't look. Everyone close your eyes. Okay, campus minister. Sorry. New clip. Right, exactly. I know how I feel. So yeah, campus ministry. The problem with campus ministry, I enjoyed it. I loved working with students. Wilkes was great. I did it for about 4 years. The problem was I had this sort of feeling of, did I actually leave the seminary? I felt like I had jumped out of the seminary and kind of jumped right back in again. And so I didn't think I was doing myself the service that I wanted to do, which was explore the other things that I wanted to do. So I did that for about 4 years. In my second year at Wilkes, August 17, 2013, my mom died. Wilkes had put me up in an apartment on campus, and my mother was there on my housewarming party. She was helping me cook for the party. She spilled an entire box of plastic cutlery on the floor. We put it all back in the box and allowed people to use it, because no one else was there. When it fell on the floor, and it was fine. The next day, she had died. We don't know exactly why. We think a heart attack. She was a diabetic. We think she was having a diabetic attack, but she had died. This was the first person in my immediate life who had passed away. Same thing for my sister. Now, my sister and my mother were very, very close. So this was, not that it wasn't hard on me, but I think very, very hard on her in a very different way. Through that experience, my sister and I really did not get along. So for the next probably about 3 years, my sister and I fought all the time. Because she and I had very different experiences of my mother, and she didn't really like my experience, which was fine. I didn't like hers either. So we fought all the time. My sister had a depression. She was drinking a lot. She was, if you ever see my sister, don't tell her I told you any of this. We were just always fighting. It was not a good time for me and her. And so I decided that I needed to kind of pull away from a lot of things. Other things in my life, I was extremely lonely. I couldn't really explain why. I had a lot of people around me, but I still didn't have that relationship. I still didn't have that sort of one person that I was looking for, which was one of the reasons why I pulled myself out of the seminary. With all of that, I was very angry. I was angry that my mother had been taken away. I was angry that I was still alone. I was angry that my sister and I were fighting all the time. I was angry about everything. And so I decided I needed to pull myself out of that life and put myself somewhere else. So I hit the reset button. Oh, I pulled out that slide. Darn it. That's all right. So I hit the reset button. I decided that I was going to go back to school. I looked at my my job as a campus minister and tried to find the things that I really enjoyed about it. What I enjoyed about it was the counseling piece, was talking to people, helping people, getting people through the problems that they had. I was doing a lot of that as a campus minister, just kind of unofficially. And so I decided I would go back to school for counseling. My father at the time lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. He owned a restaurant there right across the street from UNC Charlotte. I was telling him that I was thinking about doing this, and he said, well, why don't you come to UNC Charlotte? I'm sure they've got a program. He didn't know a program I wanted to go into. I said, okay, sure. Sure enough, they had it. I applied. I got in. I moved down in 2006. I lived with my father, and I worked for him at his restaurant. If you ever have that opportunity, don't do it. For me and him, it was a terrible idea. I was just making a joke. He and I, we fought all the time, at work, out of work. It's kind of like having your father as like your baseball coach or basketball coach or something like that, which my father did. I should have known. He was a lot harder on me than he was on his other employees, which is not always great. Sorry, just lost my train of thought. Oh, so that didn't work out. So I knew that I had some campus ministry experience, campus ministry experience and student affairs experience. I was not going back into campus ministry again. I was going to go back somewhere, I was going to get an assistantship somewhere in student affairs, but not campus ministry. So I found housing. I became a graduate assistant in housing. I assisted another, what we called their RCs, assisted another RC in running a building, and loved my time in housing. Meanwhile, as I'm going through my counseling program, I'm becoming very jaded with the counseling profession. In my internships, I was being asked to do a lot of things that, in my opinion, were very unethical. I was asked to make diagnoses that I don't think I should have made, primarily so that the agency could be paid through insurance. I didn't like any of that. And so my internships experiences were not great, and so because of that, I became very jaded with counseling. So, once again, I'm in this conundrum of what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I've now spent 3 years and all this money attaining a master's degree in counseling. The great thing is, in student affairs, you can use a counseling degree. Yes, okay, because I really enjoyed my time in housing. Loved the students, loved loved helping them through the issues that they were going through. Even student conduct I really enjoyed because they were really good conversations. People were telling, and I seemed to be very good at it. So I decided, once I graduated, that I went full-time and became a residence director. Through all of this, I was also living a life. I lived in Charlotte for about 10 years, was working in housing. I assisted the running of one building. I ran 2 buildings on my own, technically 3 at one point. I just really enjoyed my time in Charlotte. What I loved about it is that it gave me a career. I finally found a career. I finally found what I was going to do when I grew up. And so that's kind of what that picture represents. It also gave me a new identity. Not a new identity, but helped me helped me be my more authentic self, because I no longer was in my hometown. I could sort of be whoever I wanted to be. I could sort of make different choices, and I could be more authentically myself. So it was then that I came out. This was a really important thing for me. I had never really done it before, and it was nerve-wracking. It was very scary, but at the same point, it was very freeing, and it was something that I needed to do at that time. And I was very grateful that I did. These are other pictures of myself in Charlotte. I did a lot of things in Charlotte. So that third picture is a skit that we did during RA training. I was asked if I would do this. I said, sure, why not? And we were dancing to Beyonce, and it was amazing. Second one, I found a Wonder Woman costume in a closet somewhere and said, I'm going to put it on. There's actually another picture of one of my RAs wearing a Superman costume. It was a lot of fun. That's just me out with friends. I just thought it was a funny picture. That's me as a sim. You know the Sims, right? Yeah, that's me as a sim. That's one of my best friends from Charlotte, Jen. That's St. Patrick's Day. Just taking pictures. We both had taken the day off work and hung out the whole day, which was really great. That was my first Moore Hall Halloween program that we did, and I was apparently I was the guy from Silence of the Lambs. Anyway. And then that's me and my friend Jen in Vegas. And what that represents primarily is I did a lot of things in Charlotte that I had never done before. I'm getting in touch with the So through all of this, God became less. Because of my anger, because of everything that had happened, God became less. And that's kind of what that picture represents. I wasn't looking at God anymore. I was looking at me. I was looking at my life. I was looking at what it is that I wanted to do. Being in Charlotte was a little scary because I was away from pretty much everyone that I love. My sister had a niece while I was in Charlotte, and I really wanted to be closer to her, and I was having a very difficult time with that. My friend Stacy had a very serious medical thing happen to her where she almost died, and I couldn't be there for her either. And so I wanted to be closer, again, with my friends and family. So I decided to move back to Pennsylvania. Another part of it was that I had not found a relationship in Charlotte yet. So I thought maybe moving to a new location might change that. So I moved to Bethlehem. Started working at Northampton Community College as the assistant director for housing. That is the worst picture in the world, but there you go. Northampton was very eye-opening for me. I had my own apartment off campus for the first time in my life. I was able to get closer to friends and family again. There's my niece again. I was able to see more of her. I made some friends in Northampton that are still with me today, which is really great. And what I decided to do when I moved to Bethlehem was I was going to bring God with me. I had lost some of that in Charlotte, but I was going to bring God with me, and this was going to be my opportunity. I'd be closer to home. I knew a lot of priests and seminarians and sisters and all of that, and so I was going to start those relationships back up again. But Bethlehem was still too far away. I was very unhappy at work. The institution and me, it just wasn't a good fit. We had 2 deaths in 1 year in a matter of a month. One was a resident and one was an RA. Those affected me greatly. I started paying attention to my mental health and got a therapist, and at that point, God was gone. I wasn't looking at God anymore. I was too angry, I was too sad, I was too upset. So the Great Escape was moving out of Bethlehem and moving back to Scranton, somewhere closer, and coming to Marywood, which has always been a place in my life. Day 2 of Marywood, my father died. Literally my second day. I got a call on June 12th, 2018, saying my father had gone missing. After about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, what we discovered was that my father was murdered by a friend of his who he had living with him, by the friend of a friend of his who he had living with him at the time. This really affected me. My father had Parkinson's disease, had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and for the last 10 years my father had been joking about, oh, it could be any day now. The doctor said it could be any day now. So I kind of got used to him kind of saying stuff like that. This is something I never would have expected in my entire life. It gave me a new view of the world. The world, even to this day, is not the best place right now, for me. In the sense that I now understand now what people can do. I understand that the things that you think are not possible are absolutely possible. I was extremely lonely, even in the midst of a crowd. I was living with people that I loved, and yet I couldn't get connected to them. I couldn't feel connected to them. So I look back at all the experiences in my life, and what happened was I saw a lot of really bad things. Not connected really to my parents, the fight with my sister, the death of my mother, the death of my father, not being able to sort of find love, looking for happiness in other places and not being able to find it, and my anger turned to rage. My anger turned to rage. I was no longer just angry with God. I hated God. There were a lot of things that happened, and I was so upset and so lonely and so depressed about it, and I blamed God for all of it. I didn't feel like I had a choice. And so that was only really a year ago. The place where I am now is a little different. I'm not quite as angry. I think it's interesting that I'm doing this right now because I'm still in the process of moving towards this. So the next slide is actually completely blank, but it won't change. And the reason that it's blank is because I don't know what is coming next. I'm not saying that God and I have mended fences or anything like that. I will say that we are probably on that journey and on the road to doing that. I am opening my heart a little more, but I'm also staying very protected because I feel very hurt. I'm always trying to remain open. I've always tried to remain open. But at the same time, I'm also trying to be realistic. And that's what those experiences do. What is happening, however, is through this process, I'm seeing a lot more good than I had only a year ago. I'm looking at the people in my life and I'm saying, oh, wow, I never would have expected that person to be here. I'm looking at other experiences in my life and saying, well, yes, this happened, but at least this has also happened. I am still in therapy, dealing with everything that happened with my father and beyond. And so I'm looking at seminary as well, in the sense that I'm looking at the time of when I was in the seminary and trying to be thankful for that, a lot more thankful than I have been in the past. And I'm trying to pray more. It doesn't always turn out the way that, that's really how God works, is that it doesn't always turn out. My prayer is a lot of times very angry, and I had a priest, spiritual director at one point, say, you can be angry with God, he can handle it, it's fine. And he suggested that I sit in front of the tabernacle, this was when in the seminary, but he suggested that I sit in front of the tabernacle and scream. So there were moments at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when I knew all the other guys were in bed, and I would go down to the chapel and I would literally sit there and scream. I would curse. I didn't throw things because tabernacles were expensive, but I did sit there and I screamed and yelled and I cried and I said horrible things, and I told God how much I hated him, how angry I was at him. I'm doing that again because it was very therapeutic for me. I don't have a tabernacle in my house anymore, but I do it in my bedroom. It's those things I don't know what the next steps are going to be, but I do know that I need to do something. And that's what I decided to do. And with that, I've done a lot of fingers, a lot of this. So I'm going to stop there. If there are questions that you have, I'm sorry, I feel like I kind of breezed through this, but 30 seconds a year, that's all you get. But if you have questions, please feel free to let me know. Again, maybe this is just part one, because again, I don't know exactly where I'm going from here. But I do have a little more hope than I have had in the past. And I'm looking at the people around me and seeing a lot more love than I have in the past.
So, on behalf of the whole Agape Latte team, can we give over to you for the shirt?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for